what the Democrats are seeing is that there's not really any room left for dissent in their party. Their folks are getting marginalized.
Your party too, to be honest with you.
At the end of the week, Washington empties out fast. Lawmakers, staffers, they're all heading home. But not before they stop here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Punchbowl News Townhouse. We are on day 23 of the government shutdown. Both sides are incredibly dug in and there's no resolution in sight in this crisis. I'm Anna Palmer, here with...
And I'm Jake Sherman.
The one and only.
The one and only, I guess. The impacts of the shutdown are starting to be felt across the country. We talked about this in the newsletter this morning, that SNAP, the big food stamp benefit, is going cold, dry, is stopping in states across the country. This is not a small thing, Anna. This is not a small thing. There are tens of millions of people around the country who benefit from supplemental nutrition programs, ways to buy food and ways to stay alive. And these programs are saying the federal government has no more money for us. And we're going to talk about all of this, the shutdown, with James Blair, who is the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. His remit is quite
very
large and broad. He is not, there's two Jameses, James Braid and James Blair. James Braid, they call Big James. He's in charge of Leg Affairs. James Blair is in charge of Big James.
He's basically, effectively the connective tissue between the West Wing and the Capitol. Blair's role puts him in constant contact with lawmakers and campaign operatives. We're going to talk about all of that. And we have a stellar panel as well. Our very own Ally Mutnick, who goes deep on redistricting every single day, as well as CNN White House reporter Alayna Treene for our panel. There is going to be a lot to talk about.
Much to discuss. This is a 66-hour episode.
Oh,
Kidding.
God.
It is not. It is normal time. And thank you so much for tuning in. But right before that, a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Meta.
Meta is partnering with local communities across America to drive economic progress and support jobs. In places like Los Lunas, New Mexico, supporting a family once meant working out of town. Today, Meta is building the infrastructure powering America's future right in their hometowns, helping people find work close to home and spend more time with family. Because American progress starts with people.
James Blair, Deputy Chief of Staff to President Trump, also a former aide to the president's reelection campaign and a longtime figure in Republican politics. Welcome to the Punchbowl News Townhouse and to Flyout Day. And as the president said yesterday, he calls you and James Braid, it's tough with two James B's working for a president, my double James. So, I mean, we had both of them on stage at the conference.
Yeah. All right, goals, Flyout Day goals going forward.
Wow.
But let's jump right in and start with the shutdown. The president clearly is not taking the posture that former presidents have with the shutdown. He's gone to Israel. He's going to Asia tomorrow night for 6 days. He's hosting people at the White House. The president seems pretty comfortable in the political position. Why?
Well, first of all, I mean, all of the polling shows that the country is increasingly blaming Democrats. The more people tune into this, the more they're blaming the Democrats because it's the way shutdowns have always been. When the party that is really just asking for the government to be open tends to end up on the right side of public opinion. There's much polling that shows that to bipartisan agreement, people don't think you should shut down the government to argue about policy. That's Congress's day job. That's what they're supposed to do. They don't need to shut down the government to do that. I mean, I've seen polls as high as 75% of people don't think you should shut down the government to argue about policy. So look, the president has taken as many steps as he can legally to mitigate some of the impacts of the shutdown. And, unfortunately, the Democrats are pretty open about the fact that they want there to be pain for the American people. I mean, yesterday, the number 2 in the House, the whip said,
Catherine Clark.
Yeah, families are going to get hurt, but it's the only time we have leverage. Well, the president doesn't think the American people are leverage. He doesn't think women, infants, and children who need their food assistance are leverage. He doesn't think the troops are leverage. He doesn't think government employees are leverage. So the Democrats are in the wrong here. They need to do the right thing. They need to reopen, and we'll keep making them vote until they do.
Now, in your remit is kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I understand this right, is kind of the political world of the White House, public engagement, let's call it, and the legislative world, right? You have both of those things in your your tree. So let's talk about what's at the heart of the shutdown. And by the way, Republicans did this for a long time and never got anything out of it. Shut down the government a couple times in the past, and Democrats are trying it this time, and you seem to be trending in the right direction. But these premium hikes on Obamacare are a big political issue, and we've taken the view, based on this show and in our newsletter, that if it doesn't get solved, it could be a problem for Republicans. I think would be the natural thing to think. Are Republicans who are worried about the political impacts wrong about this, or what's your view on how this shakes out politically?
Well, first, let's talk about how we got here. Let's talk about what the facts are.
I'm familiar with this.
Well, we're going to remind everyone.
Let's
let's take a trip down memory lane. These subsidies, these insurance subsidies, and to be clear, these are subsidies to insurance companies. They don't actually go to people. They've been artificially masking the costs of premiums. Okay. They put these in during the COVID era. Democrats, all Democrats, right? With a tie broken by the vice president at the time, Kamala Harris. Joe Biden was the president. They controlled the Senate. They controlled the House. They voted not once, but twice to make this program temporary that we're now discussing and for them to expire. They set up this ticking time bomb. 2, back in the House mark of the reconciliation bill, we had the cost sharing reduction program, right? That would have reduced Obamacare premiums across the board.
That's right.
And what did the Democrats do? They went to the Senate parliamentarian. They lobbied her to knock out that provision because they didn't want us to lower premiums. They didn't want us to lower Obamacare premiums across the board. And by the way, that also would have been a net saver. That would have actually reduced the deficit as well. They knocked that out, and then they bragged about it. It is on their website. It is in their press releases.
Heard this before.
Yeah.
It's true. They went out and they bragged about this because they wanted to set up this moment right now, banking on sort of the American people not understanding. Okay, so when we get here, the president wants to address the cost of healthcare. He wants to talk about healthcare. He told Chuck Schumer and Leader Jeffries this in our meeting. I would know. I was there. He said,
Humble brag.
He said, it's not. I mean, it's pretty well known.
Yeah.
And he said, and Big James was there too, so you can have him on to vouch. He said, you know what? I don't even know if we should just talk about this. I think we should just address healthcare. And both of them are like, well, sir, I don't know if we're ready to do that. But there's issues. The president wants to make life affordable for people. He wants to make healthcare affordable for people. He's been talking about this for years. And on this particular issue, open the government. Let's find a solution. Let's figure out what we're going to do together. But you have to open the government. The troops are not hostages. American families aren't hostages. Women and their infant children are not hostages. People on food stamps, which are about to shut off, are not hostages. They need to do the right thing.
Let me just, so your view is that the president's preference would be not only to deal with this, but to look more globally at Obamacare. And he said this, I think, publicly, that look more globally at this and see where he could fix it. Because Mike Johnson said you can't just repeal Obamacare now. It's too ingrained in, it's too difficult. So he wants to find ways to improve it more globally than just these subsidies.
We're not just talking about Obamacare. We're not even talking about the repeal of Obamacare. We're talking about making healthcare more affordable. And there are steps we're already taking to do that. Most favored nation, something Democrats have never been able to
Prescription
do.
drugs,
right?
Yeah.
We're going through and addressing the cost of prescription drugs. Executively, we're making deals every week. Just last week, we rolled out a deal with one of the biggest providers of IVF, something the president talked about on the campaign trail. And now a course of IVF treatment will cost like 40% less than it used to. Okay. We've got more coming online that I can't forecast because obviously it's some of these companies are publicly traded, but you're going to see a successive number of deals where pharmaceutical companies are coming to the table and they're saying, you know what, we are going to get the cost of prescription drugs down in the United States. We are going to be fair to the American taxpayers and the American people that primarily fund research and development, not only for the U.S. consumer, but all around the world. And we'd like to take action to that on Capitol Hill. The president's very focused on the cost of healthcare. And by the way, when you ask people, when you survey these things and ask them, what is the things that hurts them the most? What is the things they want to address the most? It's the cost of prescription drugs. We're taking action on that. Again, we supported the cost sharing reduction program. This would have not only saved money, but would have lowered Obamacare premiums by upwards of 15% across the board. The Democrats fought that. So the president does want to, and he's been price transparency, something he's long been behind and continues to try to strengthen from his first term, right? And in his first term, the president brought down the cost of insulin to $35. Joe Biden went out and campaigned in it, but the fact is Joe Biden froze the program that President Trump enacted on his way out of office. And then he reopened it a month later and said he did it. It was never true. It was President Trump that brought down the cost of insulin. So yes, he does want to holistically get the cost of healthcare down. It's something he has said publicly. It is something we work on actively. And the Democrats have created a sideshow around one particular issue because they don't want to admit there's bigger issues that they're not focused on. And two, that they are the ones that set up this ticking time bomb to begin with.
So Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are basically begging President Trump at this point to come to the negotiating table with the government shutdown, do a meeting. Democrats, I mean, it's kind of ironic, but I mean, they are basically saying without Trump, we can't get ourselves out of this. He has said no so far. Is there any chance he changes the view? I mean, he likes to be the deal maker. He wants to play that role here.
I don't think we understand what the deal is. We have said very clearly, we will talk about healthcare. We will work on anything you want. Open the government and let's get to work. We called Chuck Schumer and said the president would like to have the whole Senate, Democrats included, over to the White House as soon as you open the government. We await that.
They called Schumer and said that.
Yes, our staff did at the president's direction. He'd like to have them all to the Rose Garden Club right after he left. He wants to talk to the Democrats, but we are not going to hold the American people hostage to have a policy dispute. We're not going to let them turn this into a circus. It's ridiculous. It's very simple. Do the right thing. Open the government. Do what you have done 13 times under Joe Biden. Do what you have called on Republicans to do the whole time you've ever been in Congress, right? Schumer has always said, you can play clip after clip after clip after clip. You don't shut down the government to have a debate about policy. He said that for many years, but now magically it's changed. You know why? Because they're kowtowing to their left-wing voters. It's very simple. He's afraid of AOC. He's tired of getting beaten up online by activists. We know this, right? What did the whip say again yesterday? Yes, well, people are going to get hurt. This is the Democratic whip.
Yes.
People are going to get hurt. But that gives us leverage. Well, we don't think people are leverage. What did another Democrat staffer say? Short of planes falling out of the sky. Well, guess what? They're risking that because air traffic control is about to not get paid, right?
Yeah.
We are running out of money. They're actually risking planes falling out of the sky to have leverage. That doesn't make sense to us.
How do you talked about your meeting, being in the meeting with Schumer and Jeffries? Like, what was your impression of their vibe? Like, what was your impression of how they vibed with the president and how the president thinks of them?
President's happy to talk to anybody anytime. I mean, that's the thing about
Said he would talk to Mom Donnie if he wins. So.
Of course. I mean, the president is always very open. He doesn't fear talking to people. In fact, he thinks engagement is good. He thinks communication is good. If you work in the White House, you quickly learn that one of the critical things you have to do is return phone calls quickly, engage with people, discuss with people. He likes to do that. He's happy to have a conversation with anyone. So I think it was totally fine. But, at the end of the day on this particular issue, I mean, we have to get the government open. They sent a letter the other day. The president was asked about it in the press conference. What day was that? Thursday? That was Tuesday.
Yep.
And he said, I'm happy to meet with them as soon as they open the government. It's really that simple. It's not more complicated than that.
Yep.
All right, let's shift to politics here because I think this is really where we are spending a ton of time thinking about 2026. How important is it to the president to keep the House and Senate?
I think it's very important to him. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he talks all the time that, he knows what history says, but in terms of, how the midterms go for the party in power or the president in power. But, right now there's a lot of reasons for Republicans to feel really good, just analytically. If you look at the RCP average today, the generic ballot is probably like minus 1.5, 1.6 for Republicans. That is a good 6.5, 7 points better than at the same point in 2018. It's better than it was for us at the same time back before the 2022 midterms when Joe Biden was in office. It's a really good trend. The macro markers of the political environment are good for Republicans. If you look at every state in the country that registers voters by party, every single one, Republican registration is substantially outpacing Democrat registration and that's 32 states that have partisan registration. It's true in the others too. They just don't track by party. You can tell with modeling. So the actions that people are taking in terms of joining the rolls is the number one indicator ultimately of where the elections go. We talked about this a lot in 2024. And frankly, a lot of Democrat data guys at the time tried to counteract us, and they have since come out and said, we were wrong.
Yeah.
So the macro environment is pretty good for Republicans. The president's approval ratings are very solid. They're better than Obama's were at the same point. If you count kind of the 5th year of his presidency, better than Obama's, better than Bush's. So Republican, and the map is very offensive. So Republicans have a lot of reasons to feel good about the midterms.
And you have a bunch of interesting races, and how do you think? What do you think about Texas, John? How is John Cornyn doing? What do you think about the 3-way race that has developed there? Intra-party squabble, let's call it, between Wesley Hunt, Ken Paxton, and John Cornyn.
Yeah. The president has 3 friends in that race, so that can make things tough sometimes. Obviously, Senator Cornyn appears to have done a good job, kind of pulling his polling numbers up and from where they were a few months ago. And Wesley jumping into the race is, a little bit of a wild card in that. I think, we'll see how it plays out over the next, weeks and months. Here's what I'm confident in. A Republican is going to be the senator from Texas, and we will see if and when the president decides to engage in the primary. But I'm very confident that a Republican will be or remain the senator from Texas.
On Texas, let me just follow up on that for a second. The president is famously sitting on a lot of money, a lot of campaign money. I don't think he's ever stopped raising money for whatever he's raising money for. Do you expect that the president will be active in spending in Texas to make, if it's, there's a lot of Democrats who have a lot of energy. Democrats have dreamed about winning in Texas for 20 years now.
As long as we've been covering politics.
Texas is going blue. I've been hearing that. I'm blue in the face from that. Do you think that the president will spend?
I do think the president will spend. I'm very confident of that. In fact, the president is spending already. Don't always advertise it, but
what do you mean he's spending already?
In some of the races that are going on right now.
In Texas?
Not in Texas specifically, but in other races. But
you think he'll spend in Texas to make sure a Republican wins that seat?
If it's necessary, absolutely.
Yeah.
The president will, and he's told this to Republicans in the House and the Senate. He also helps them raise money. I think the NRCC raised a record $35 million in 4 weeks at the dinner he did back in April. And he appears for the committees. I'm quite confident he'll spend. I'm quite confident that money will not be our limiting factor. The president has run and won 3 national campaigns.
2, but,
so he knows how to deploy resources, and at the end of the day, he will spend what it takes and help his team win.
I want to ask about one other race before we get into redistricting. Bill Cassidy, senator from Louisiana. We had Steve Scalise on here last week. He would not endorse Bill Cassidy, which I thought was striking. Will the president endorse him?
The president has not engaged in that race at this time. We'll see if he chooses to. I don't know. But the way to know whether or not the president is engaged in a race is to read his truth. The first thing you see is an endorsement from him personally on his truth of any candidate. And until such a time as you see that, the president is not engaged in a race.
Engaged, yeah. Can I ask you, how many, we keep hearing, I've heard from a bunch of congressional Democrats that there have been overtures from the White House to switch parties. How many people are you trying to get to switch? Not you. Well, you or the White House trying to get to become Republicans.
I don't know exactly what you're referring to there, but I would say that
the sneaking suspicion that
I would say that listen, if Democrats see the light, we would certainly welcome that. One of our close friends is Jeff Van Drew. I think you can talk with that. I think you can talk with Jefferson Van Drew, as the president once noted. It's funny that the president understands that politics is about addition, not subtraction. That's why he built the biggest coalition for any Republican president and party ever. He won the national popular vote for the first time in 20 years, right? The first non-incumbent president to win that since, I think, 88. Every swing state, country's trending our way. Voter registration's trending our way. We are adding to our party. And that, includes Democrats on Capitol Hill if they so choose. Obviously, that's up to them. But I do think, what the Democrats are seeing is that there's not really any room left for dissent in their party. Their folks are getting marginalized.
Your party too, to be honest with you.
You know, they're
Just let's be clear.
Their folks are getting marginalized if they. I mean, to call them centrists is sort of hilarious if it's anything short of far left. That's what's driving the shutdown right now. The very far left right now has people who lead the party completely in a box. They've kidnapped them. So, look, I think that a lot of Democrats have a lot of wrestling to do with their own party ideologically and to think through whether or not it's really a fit for them anymore.
I want to talk about redistricting. Led by the White House and the Trump administration, we're in an unprecedented kind of environment that certainly in the last 20 years we've been doing this. You've got some big wins in Texas. Democrats are coming back in California. But the Indiana Senate president said the voters aren't there to redistrict in the Hoosier state. Is that an answer you can accept?
I don't know if that's an accurate answer based on what people tell me. So I think we'll see how Indiana continues to evolve, but I don't think that's a correct assessment.
I mean, you guys, meaning Republicans, have been. I mean, it's remarkable what's gone on. I mean, you're going to pick up potentially 5 seats in Texas, Indiana, Missouri, Kansas. One state that has not been on the radar, or it's been on our radar, is Florida, your home state, a state that I guess is President Trump's home state now, Susie Wild's home state. Is there opportunity to redistrict in Florida?
Well, that'll be up to them. I mean, we're not engaged with Florida, but the House has put up a special select committee on redistricting. They rolled that out back in September. So there is indications that they might be interested in relooking at their maps. The governor has talked about it a lot, obviously, as have some members of the legislature. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take an action. You know, Floridian, the Florida legislature has been sort of fighting this battle, if you know the history, for a long time. They have views on not only some of the state constitutional amendments in our state, but as well as, you know, some of the things that are now being challenged federally and what the laws are. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them take action.
I want to ask one last question here because I think it's been on our minds. We've discussed it quite a bit and on this show. Is this just a one-time play, or are Republicans going to redistrict or try these efforts every single 2 years?
Well, let's talk about
not only Republicans, but Democrats too.
Now they're doing it.
Republicans didn't start this, so let's sort of start there, right? Democrats have always done this. They have a strategy they call Suda Blue. Eric Holder has a group that professes to be anti-gerrymandering, but it's actually pro-gerrymandering. They just outsource it to independent commissions, which then hire Democrat consultants, and they draw the maps. This is a pretty tried and true strategy. They have been trying to get 2 seats out of Wisconsin for several years now through litigation. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race had $50 million spent on it by left-wing groups trying to trade one liberal justice out for another liberal justice, which they did successfully. Soon as that happened, they put up the same lawsuit that had already been rejected. It was rejected again. They have now put up a third lawsuit, and this is all about trying to retrade a map that was drawn by a liberal governor on orders of a liberal Supreme Court because they want to knock out 2 Republican seats. What's going on in Utah right now? There is a liberal judge in Salt Lake City who's trying to knock out 2 Republican seats under, you know, a contorted view of the law. And that has been an almost 2-year litigation strategy by Democrats. They sued in North Carolina.
So it is, we're saying, well, this is just going to continue, basically.
It's never stopped on the left. For the first time, Republicans are fighting back. That's the point.
Yeah,
it happened in Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia. This has been going on all around the country forever from the left. And the reason they're not doing more of that is because they have already maximally gerrymandered their states. They talk about Maryland. They've tried to draw Andy Harris out repeatedly.
And they might try again.
They might try again. They've run into court problems repeatedly. Look at the state of Illinois. Need we say more about the state of Illinois? I mean, Donald Trump won almost 40% of the state of Illinois. It has 3 out of 16 congressional
and it's
seats.
about to have less than that.
So we'll see.
All right, we gotta quickly wrap this up, but let's do a quick lightning round, which we always do. A few questions that are kind of fun and quick. How would you describe Susie Wild's style of running the White House?
If you have her trust, she gives you a wide berth to operate. She's very good at getting competing egos and competing priorities all rowing in the same direction for the president first and foremost. She subverts her ego. It is what the boss wants. And she gets everybody in the right seats on the bus to get the bus moving forward.
Yeah. Is Vance the heir apparent, JD Vance the heir apparent to Trump in 28?
I think the vice president's doing a great job. I think people love him. We were happy when we selected him. I think he's a great vice president. So ultimately, that'll be up to the president and the voters, but we think very well of our vice president.
Let's finish with this. Knowing the political climate, what state are we not watching that we should be watching on redistricting, even on the Republican side or the Democratic side?
I mean, I think all of the states that I'm sort of aware of are out there talking. I think the real wrinkle will be what happens with the VRA case that was just argued in front of the Supreme Court. I think there's just starting to be some conversation about that. And depending on which way it goes, it could totally shift the landscape for 26 or 28. We'll see.
Both, yeah. All right. The not big James, James Blair, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Meta is partnering with local communities across America to drive economic progress and support jobs. In places like Los Lunas, New Mexico, supporting a family once meant working out of town, missing birthdays or ball games. Today, Meta is building the infrastructure powering America's future right in their hometowns, helping people find work close to home and spend more time with family. The company's $600 billion commitment in the U.S. through 2028 is helping communities like Los Lunas thrive, creating new opportunities and strengthening local economies. Because American progress starts with people. All right, Jake, we are fortunate today to be joined by White House reporter from CNN, Alayna Treene, and our very own Ally Mutnick, who is very
That woohoo was for both.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good.
I was about to say, where's my woohoo?
One current Hill person, one former Hill person who has made him the mistake of going to the White House, but we won't hold that against him.
Forgive her, but is a great person to have. And want to get your reaction first. James Blair, he had a very newsy conversation talking a lot about shutdown politics, redistricting. What was your biggest takeaway?
I had two. One, and sorry if I'm stealing any of yours, Ally. One is that what he said about inviting Democrats to have, be on the Rose Garden Club, which is, of course,
they're going to say no to that. Don't you think so?
Of course. I mean, I wonder if the way that he said it sounds like he already invited them, so they probably already said no. But that to me was interesting just because the president himself has not been, it's actually been a strategy of the White House for him to kind of leave this to Johnson and Thune and not have him be super involved.
Yep.
So that to me was really fascinating, and fascinating that the Democrats, if they actually were given this opportunity, were just like, no.
Well, I think the way he said it was that he would invite them to the Rose Garden Club after they opened the government. But interesting in so much as Trump has not engaged with Democrats much, right? I mean, it would be pretty stunning to have doors open, come here Democrats.
Yeah, and he hasn't really engaged with a lot of Republicans, to be honest. I mean, he talks to the leaders about it, but he hasn't been making a lot of calls or telling people what to do like he has done, of course, with like the big beautiful bill and other things this year that he actually views as like real priorities.
He doesn't have to. I mean, they are standing straight. They are standing pat. I mean, he doesn't have to work over anybody right now. No Republicans. Like Beth Van Dyne of Texas is the only one complaining about the House not being here and ending the shutdown and coming back. Like everyone else. And Johnson, I'll give Johnson credit. He says 99.8% of people are with him. He's probably close to right. I'd go down a little bit because I think, he's wrong about a lot of stuff, but I think he's not.
There's some members whose honey-do list is done and they're ready to get back to Washington in the private conversations I've been having. Ally, what was your top takeaway?
Redistricting, Ally.
Okay, I was actually going to say spending. He said President Trump will spend some of his money on the midterm races for Republicans. That's huge. He also said they already are.
I don't know what that meant.
I didn't either. He didn't elaborate. I'm going to go see if I can figure it out.
I mean, that must be, and I don't know, I'm going to extrapolate here. Maybe he's putting it into a C3 or a C4 and they're spending it.
I mean, he said they're already spending not in Texas, but in other places.
Yeah.
They just don't advertise it?
Well, that would signal to me that he's putting it into a dark money. I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. He's putting it into a dark money vehicle that doesn't have to disclose. Right? Isn't that what you think?
Yeah, there are ways to hide it if they want to hide it.
By the way, why isn't he doing that in California, where where Republicans are completely underground?
They're polling today, right? Isn't there a new poll?
And I will eat crow here.
You are very...
No, but Ally and I both thought this, and we thought at the beginning, because it was what, 51%?
Sure.
We thought that it was only going to get worse, because that's what Californians always say, Republicans and Democrats, that it always goes down from the first poll number. It's up to like 60 or something.
Yeah. And redistricting commissions are popular. Independent redistricting alone is popular, but they messaged it, to Newsom's credit, really well. They tied it to Trump, they linked it to Texas, and it's clearly working.
And Kevin McCarthy is he's nowhere on it.
I mean, the disappearing man. He hasn't been
He
talking
hasn't
about
lost
it.
a lot of weight too. So
Oh, well, there you
disappearing in more ways than one.
The other thing my other top takeaway from this conversation is what he said on healthcare. One, that not only is Trump ready to, and the administration is ready to talk about going bigger on healthcare, not just on these Obamacare subsidies, but then also the idea that they plan on more rollouts of deals with pharmaceutical companies.
Publicly traded ones too.
I mean, that has always kind of been a goal of his. Trump said that repeatedly on the campaign trail. So it's not surprising. I think what is surprising, what would I want to pay attention to and dig into after that comment is that the end goal with these shutdown negotiations, that they are kind of just going to bypass the subsidies and say, we want this to be so much bigger. And that's part of why they're so dug in right now.
A big, beautiful deal.
Subsidies going, they go into effect in January. All the rates are going to go up. I mean, we don't have a lot of time for some massive healthcare package to go through.
Not even in January. I have two thoughts here. And this is what Laura Weiss on our team, who really covers the Ways and Means and which deals a lot with healthcare, it gets worse for each week that they do not have a deal in place to extend these subsidies, because open enrollment's November 1. Yes, Mike Johnson always says, well, this is a year-end conversation. It's not actually, right? Because if you take it to the year end, insurance companies are going to raise rates. That's number one. Number two, I've had this idea rattling around in my head, and maybe we'll write about this tomorrow morning, that
A little preview sneak peek here,
guys,
folks.
maybe don't watch this if it's not Friday morning, or watch it, whatever. Republicans are going to get involved in a months-long effort to try to do a healthcare bill, and they're going to be stuck in this morass once again. And it's just going to be like, and Johnson kind of gave away the ghost, so to speak, when he said, well, we can't repeal Obamacare. We need to fix it. And like, politically, Ally, this is a crappy conversation for them to be having. They always try to do stuff on healthcare, and it never works. Maybe Johnson's better than other people. Maybe he thinks he's better. Maybe Trump is better. I mean, I don't know. It's not a great combo for them.
No, and Democrats want this to be a healthcare midterm. They're making it a healthcare midterm, and they're making it easy for them.
What about at the end of last year, there was a big healthcare package with extenders that didn't get done. PBM, it did a lot with telehealth, a bunch of other things. You could see that be wrapped into some kind of a package that could be a win for Republicans.
I mean, I honestly think Trump just wants to walk away with his legacy being Trump care. Like, wants to get rid of Obamacare, hates the former president, Barack Obama, wants to rename a healthcare system after him. I don't know, though. I mean, I do agree with you. I think the big point here is, are they actually going to dig into this and make this a midterms issue? Because that just, to me, makes absolutely no sense politically for them.
All right, let's shift gears. We have a fun segment. That's not gonna fly. I know, Jake isn't in love with it, but
I don't love
like
the pun, but the pun is who we are. We're punny people, I guess.
There you go. Alayna, what is your That's Not Gonna Fly this week?
Oh, I think so much attention this week, so I'm just going to say it's not going to fly, is this East Wing presidential ballroom. It's now 50% more than the president. He's basically, okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to have a one-liner for it's not going to fly.
No, it's okay.
But this idea that it's just getting bigger and bigger and more expensive, and all of this, the timing of it is what I think isn't going to fly. The timing of this being in the middle of a shutdown when people are struggling to make ends meet.
And he's building it.
Not great optics.
He's building a gold ballroom.
Yeah.
I understand that might not be preferable to a lot of people.
Ally.
So I know this has been mentioned on this segment before, but I have to bring it back up again because early voting is starting this week in the New York City mayoral race, and both Democratic leaders have not endorsed the Democratic nominee, both Democratic leaders in Congress.
From New York.
From New York, yes, that's right. Hakeem Jeffries has said that he will endorse before early voting. Early voting is about to start, so he's really
Like the day after tomorrow.
right up to the wire, yes. So,
And it's not believable to say that you're still talking to Zohran Mamdani.
Absurd.
What is there to talk about?
I don't know. It's not. The truth is this. Like, let's peel back the onion or whatever, the curtain. Let's peel back something. Members are pressing them not to endorse. I mean, you've covered campaigns for a very long time, Ally. There's going to be a zillion, and that's a scientific number, ads in congressional races across the country of member of Congress X is standing with Zoran Mamdani, the socialist who said all these things.
And there are races in New York, there are races in New Jersey where that's really very specific.
Right. Mike Lawler will do it.
Sure.
And people will try to tie Tom Suozzi to it, all those things.
All right, Jake.
Catherine Clark.
Not a great week for her.
Not a great week. She said something to the extent, not a quote, that some people might be hurt in the shutdown, but this is the only point of leverage that we have. You don't want to say people are going to be hurt and leverage in the same sentence. It does interestingly dovetail with what Kevin Hassett told us, right? He's like, I don't blame Democrats for trying to do this. He said this on the show.
Leverage.
This is one of the few leverage points that we have. But Mike Johnson literally outside of his office has a TV that he's put in the little alcove outside the speaker's office that is playing this on repeat. Literally on repeat. They've had this, since the beginning of the shutdown, and they played various clips. So
it's so interesting because Democrats are more united. We wrote this morning, Senate Democrats, Schumer's standing within the caucus is better than it has been in a very long time. But he also stepped in it in the, Punchbowl News AM just a week ago or so.
it gets better every day. Yeah.
I mean, that just is like Democrats need a messaging, somebody to
They
help
need to
them
go
out.
to a retreat and talk about staying on message, which they are not. Well,
on that note, we will leave it here. Thank you both so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
We really appreciate it. It was fun.
guys.
Yeah. All right, Jake, what a great show.
That was terrific.
James Blair, super newsy, talking all things shutdown, healthcare, Republicans going big on healthcare policy.
I think, as we just talked about with our friends, Ally and Alayna, there's risk to that.
Yep.
There is risk to that. Getting a Trump tried. I will say this: it was early on in his. I always do this
I
to
don't
you.
know what's happening.
It was
feel
early
it's
on. It was.
You gotta work. Just work.
It was early.
Work in your box, man.
It was early on in his political career, Trump.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was not. It was just a year, not even a year into the presidency, or around a year in. I just think there's huge risk for Republicans on healthcare, and not because I'm trying to be, as Johnson likes to say, I'm a natural skeptic or anything like that, which I am. I'll eat crow on that. But we've just seen it is 2025. Republicans have been nowhere on healthcare since 2010. Right? You're talking about 15, almost 16 years, right? So really 16 years, because it's 2009 Democrats started.
In some ways, Trump can get a lot further doing these singular deals with pharmaceutical companies, with drug companies.
Just pressure.
Pressuring them to do things instead of, getting things through Congress on healthcare is super complicated, really difficult. I think the biggest thing we want to end out though here on is, man, what is going to happen with the shutdown? Both sides seem entrenched. I don't get how Democrats are going to get themselves out of this pretzel.
We talked about this, and we talked about it on the Daily Punch. Our goal yesterday and in this morning's newsletter and Thursday morning's newsletter was like to say, how do Democrats plan to get out of this? And they don't have a clear ask at this point, and they're not
Except let's meet with Trump.
They're not thinking about an off-ramp. They're banking on the president folding. And someone at the White House, and I've said this a couple different times, someone at the White House said to me, they need to figure out what their off-ramp is that is short of the president folding and giving them what they want, because he's not willing to do that. And you heard this from James Blair, that the president isn't interested in the subsidies alone. He is interested in a more global healthcare deal. And that being the case, I don't see how this gets done cleanly. And Mike Johnson said to Caitlin Collins on her show last night, we're talking, but this is too much for a CR. We've been saying since the beginning, this is a lot to put on a 7-week CR, no matter what you think the policy is.
And now it's like a 4-week one.
Oh, it's not even 4 weeks. I mean, it's the 23rd today, and the CR runs out the 21st. And what are they going to do? They're going to kick it to the new year. They're going to keep talking about spending. They're going to talk about healthcare. And then we're just, this is going to be a very busy legislative period for the next 6 to 8 months now.
All right, Jake, we are going to leave it there.
Stay safe. Tune in next week. We'll be back with another episode of Flyout Day.